Today we're going to talk about learning in general, and I'm going to share with you some effective ideas and principles for better learning that I personally use so that you can learn anything better, faster, more effectively and more efficiently. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Mrinal. Learning something properly and effectively and fast has always been a forte for me, be it academics, learning music, learning piano, learning how to sing, learning close-up magic, stage magic, or even in my professional life as a software engineer. There is learning throughout, and I always have to step up to the next level. Here are 9 pragmatic ideas. Idea number 1 is what I like to call PP, or the prep period. So this is your period before you actually learn something, actually study something, right? Skim through, see what are the sections you're going to study, see what comes after it, right? Suppose you're studying electrostatics, see what are the subheadings inside it. See what comes after electrostatics, maybe current electricity, right? Or electromagnetism. If you're studying computers, Java, let's say, objects, classes, maybe concepts like abstraction will come next, inheritance or polymorphism, whatever comes next, you should have a clear roadmap of what lies in front of you. You should not go through your notes or reading material line by line, not knowing what will come next. The idea is to take a step back and know where you stand in the overall picture. Idea number 2 is the interest period, right? So here, this is the time for you to build interest on what you're about to study. Focus on the problems, not the solutions before you start studying, right? What are the problems you're going to solve? Maybe since we're talking about physics, if you talk about laws of motion, right? You have the famous horse cart problem. When a horse pulls a cart, there's an equal and opposite force according to Newton's third law, right? So on the entire system, there should not be movement at all, right? But that is not the case. Why? Maybe you'll be able to answer after reading the chapter, right? So these are questions you should ask. If you're learning a new piece on the piano, for example, right? How do you build interest? Well, listen to the best interpreters, best players in the world, maybe Rubinstein or Horowitz, playing those pieces that will build the interest for you, and then you can learn subsequently. Idea number 3 is the note-taking period. This is extremely important. You have to write down. You always have to have a pen and paper, or your laptop or Mac or iPad, wherever you prefer to write notes. Have them by your side when you're studying something. For note-taking, there are several methods. You can do the mind mapping, the spider diagrams. Another extremely famous technique is the Cornell method, where you divide the page into 2 sections. The right side, you actually write the notes. After you write the notes, on the left side, you write the keywords, questions, so that you can revise later, right? At the end of a chapter, you can draw a line at the bottom and write the summary for the entire chapter. I will talk about note-taking in detail in future videos, just not this one. Idea number 4 is the teaching phase, right? This is extremely important in the sense whatever you learn, you should be able to explain it to somebody in simple words. And this is actually the concept of Feynman technique, where there are 4 parts. The first part is study. Next part is teach it to a 12-year-old. When you teach somebody something, you get to know where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are. These weaknesses are called gaps. And subsequently, step number 3 is filling those gaps, right? Whatever gaps you figure out while teaching somebody, you fill those gaps in step 3. And the last step number 4, is to organize and simplify whatever you've studied so far. The next tip is to prioritize the weaker areas, the areas you spent less time on previously. So next time you sit to study, start with those weaker concepts. A very good tip would be to start from the back of your book sometimes. If you are a singer who has sets, who has a repertoire of songs you're going to perform somewhere, then you practice the songs that are difficult, that you're not able to execute perfectly, maybe the high notes, the riffs which you're not able to sing. Idea number 6 is not to study under the pressure of a ticking time bomb. This is something I am guilty of predominantly in the college phase, right? So we used to study late at night and give exams the next day, and this happens to lots of us. Fortunately, because of my healthy habits, I used to learn well and do well in those exams as well. Give yourself enough time to learn, take notes, and then revise them. Give time to even the final chapters, right? Don't only focus on the chapters at the beginning of the textbook. This is also one primary reason why many people tend to go blank in the exam hall. Tip number 7 is going overboard, right? So what you've been assigned to study a little more than that, because that actually gives you flexibility to think beyond what you've studied. So if there's any tricky question that comes in the exam hall, your friends will not be able to do them, but you will be able to. And sometimes teachers do test you on this. Tip number 8, probably the most important, is the revise and recall phase, right? For revision, you can follow something called as speed reading, right? I will cover this in detail in a future video, but there are concepts of using mental markers, right? Whenever there's a paragraph, you form a picture of that paragraph, store it in your brain, read the page, you collect all the images, make a bigger image, complex mental marker, right? At the end of a chapter, you collect all the images, make a complex marker out of it. That is a way to remember something for a short duration. To move this from a short-term memory to a long-term memory, something called active recall is required. So this can be done by spaced repetition, right? Revise every 2 weeks or every month, whatever suits you. There's a very good app called Anki, which will help you with spaced repetition in case you're building vocabulary, learning new language, or anything for that matter. For speed reading, you have to eliminate sub-vocalization, which is reading in your mind while you're reading it. So if you remove that, you'll be much faster at reading, and you have to start using something called saccades, right, which are eye jumps. So you divide the page into columns basically, and then take in groups of words and jump between the columns. The last tip number 9, is the practice period. So this is something that's going to take some time, because learning how to learn is a skill and you have to practice it, right? So try learning something very frequently, maybe learning a new skill, photography, editing, learning a new concept, learning new languages. Do this as often as possible because it requires practice for you to be good at it, like anything else. Read something daily, anything, either fiction, non-fiction, physical books, or maybe invest in a Kindle if you can, because this is one of the best investments I have made personally. I'll tell you about it in a future video. A quick tip would be not to brush over things that seem complex at first. You give up before even trying, so don't do that. Try to push your brain to learn something complex once in a while, right? Progressive overload is a concept that you might have heard during your workout at the gym, where you increase your weight slowly, right, in a course of time. Same thing with learning. Try to push your brain to learn something harder every time. Well, that's it, friends. If you found this helpful, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. I'll see you soon.